Welcome to the Purdue Institute for Family Business video series. I'm Renee Wyatt.
And I'm Mariel Marshall.
Today we're going to talk about the social structure of the family. So what does that mean?
Well, when we talk about the social structure of the family, we're talking about the family that you're born into and the family that you kind of procreate with, or your partner and spouse. So the reason why this is important is because a family business involves a family. So understanding how that structure works and the perspectives of the different types of families that you can have, because there's all different types of families, people that are in and out of a family. So we're going to talk about the family of orientation. That's the family that you're born into. And then we can talk about the family of procreation, and that's basically who you're partner with, or who your spouse is, however you make your family, but that's one that you're basically partnering with somebody else to create a family. And so those have two different perspectives. And so we'll think about, as you're thinking about a family business, that those kinship ties can go back and forth. So people come in and out of different family structures. And so when you're thinking about family structure, it's really important on how that influences the business. So when you're thinking about, you have yourself and you have the family of orientation, the family that you were built into. You can think of yourself as a little kid. And then you have your extended family that's part of your family of orientation. And then you partner and you have your family of procreation. And then you may have children, and then those become a family tree. So you can see as you're going along from that first family of orientation to the family of procreation and to that family tree, how there may be different perspectives and different people that are stakeholders are part of that family business. So that's why it's important to understand how social structures and the social structure of the family influences the family business. So the structure of the family business is important because as we tend to think of a family business, we tend to think of a conjugal family, which is basically a household unit. So when you start off in that family of orientation, it's you and your parents and how those goes on. Remember, you then, as you become partners, have spouses, you have that procreation family orientation, and that becomes another household unit with its own economics tied to that. So as you have people come in and out of these different households, you increase the complexity of the structure of the family business. So that level of inclusiveness may be important to decide, do in-laws, are they part of what we consider the social structure of the family, and how will they're going to affect family business? So we just had a video not too long ago where somebody was asking whether the in-laws should be part of the discussion. Well, that really depends on how that family structure and the social structure of the family is set up to be inclusive or exclusive of those families of procreation, and how that identification of the family is going to be done for that particular family system and structure.
And we can think about names and how people identify with names, and it may vary depending on the norms. But if you think about, like for example, if your last name is Kennedy, you might want to keep that name, or you might want to hyphenate that name going forward, even as a female.
That's right. You see that a lot lately, is whether you change your name a lot. That might depend on the family history. So the structure of the family, it's really thinking about how those kinship systems can be open. So a lot of times what's the complexity of a family business, that it's tied to that family identity and that loyalty that happens within that household unit. And that's how those different perspectives can change. So even if you thought that your in-laws weren't part of the discussion, I bet you they are in some way, shape, or form. So the thing about kinship systems is that they are open. People can have new partners, may divorce, or somebody may pass away and a widow might remarry. And so there is kind of this entry and exit that may happen of family systems. And if you're lucky, it doesn't happen. But normally we do have some entry and exit in family kinships, and that does affect the family business. So that's important things to think about and to kind of have policies around. So you have to recognize that this is a problem of mobilization within the family structure.
And this is why boundaries are also very, very important, setting up those boundaries and making sure that we have boundaries in place between these systems to help control some of those resources and how they flow.
Mm-hmm. So the social structure of the family also involves how that family has immediate impact on that family business, and how that existing family realm really thinks about family as a structure in and of itself. And again, how that influences the family business. So it is really fundamental, and understanding this helps you understand the different perspectives of the business. So there are tensions in various forms, such as close or distant, how close or distant we are with our relatives, who we identify with. So we might be close to our cousins or our aunts and consider them as part of our, like other parents. So families can be that close and that loyal or not. And so you have to be open to kind of the arrival of, and departure of different family members. So again, that openness and those boundaries of kinship systems are important. So another social structure that we see in business is spousal teams in business. We tend to call them copreneurs. And this is a very common type of family business, is where two spouses are working together. And basically 50% of all entrepreneurial teams in the US are spousal teams in business. Some pros is they're used to working together. They have the same economic goals, same values. They're in the same household. So there's a lot of pros to that. Some cons is there tends to be a lot of work-family conflict because it's hard to experience and put in place those boundaries when your two spouses working together. So what happens in the business might translate into the household and vice versa. Another team or another type of structure in business is sibling teams. And when we were talking earlier in another video is about sibling partnerships, these would be sibling teams in business. So it's usually when you went from an owner-manager to a sibling partnership, there's a lot of sibling relationships. The pros is that they have usually very similar values. They're part of that family of orientation. And so there's this kind of similar outlook on life. Some cons is that there's conflict due to this, it's an involuntary membership. You're together because you're siblings. You might not, it's like, yes, the family you're born into. And some of the rivalries that happen in childhood actually can translate into the business as well. So you have to tend to have more conflict over kind of those sibling rivalries that come into business. But also here's where this family of procreation also has a conflict. So you have two siblings, all of a sudden they have partners. Those partners have a say in what happens in the business, whether somebody wants to or not. And so you start having conflicts of loyalty between the original household and then the new household. Then you have this cousin consortium sometimes, or family enterprise, which is the extended family in business. These are relational ties that transform into more contractual ties. Now you need more policies in place and contracts in place to get everybody on the same page. There are many households, many of those conjugal households together. So you have cousins, all of them have spouses and have kids, and so you have a lot of perspectives. So you need more governance in place for this to happen. Families become more like organizations and corporations, even if it's only privately held within a family. They just need more governance, more policies in place to be able to hold those families together. So there's also relationship dynamics, because now the loyalty is the loyalty to the business and the loyalty to multiple households and multiple businesses. And so there has to be some values in place that the family has that translates into the control for the business. So family embeddedness has a lot to do with how a family and the way that a family is involved in the business. So the more embedded, the more influence a family has on the business. There's a dependence among family members with each other in terms of family business embeddedness and going into the business. How distant the family members are. So you might have family members all over the country in terms of physical distance, and then there's distance on that we just don't get along. We don't, even though we're in the same town, we just don't talk to each other very much. There's loyalty concerns within the family when you're thinking about family embeddedness. Remember those procreation, orientation, multiple households with their own perspectives of what is best for them. Social economic aspirations of different parts of the family that might affect how that family influences the business. These relational attributes, this, we're two siblings and we get along really well, but when it comes to cousins, we have more rivalry when it comes to the different households. And then there's different types of conflicts that can happen between family members that can affect family embeddedness and translates over to the family business. So interpersonal dynamics have a lot to do with family embeddedness, and a lot of times when we think about family firms, we think about these interpersonal dynamics in the family firm. So the parallel presence of the three systems, the family, the ownership, management, really gives rise to different boundaries and different functions that you need to think about when it comes to interpersonal dynamics. So these three systems, these three logics have different conflicts, and think as people enter and exit into the different systems, you're going to have different conflicts. You're going to have communication style and the channels that people communicate with. You might have some justice principles. So how is fairness thought about in the family business? How do you make decisions? How do people behave when you're in family reunions or on a family council? So all of those are things to think about. So what's accepted as legitimate behavior in these interpersonal dynamics? So a lot of firms, what they have to do is have policies related to how people treat each other within the family and within the firm, and what's acceptable, and how the boundaries need to be set around those interpersonal dynamics, so that as conflicts arise, and they will, there's a way to solve those without it really dissolving the family and the family business. So as you're thinking about how things change, particularly in a succession process, there are ways that you communicate between, for example, the incumbent and the successor. So in the family realm, you have a father-son or father-daughter, mother-daughter perspective. There's a different way that you talk to your son and your daughter in a family perspective. But when it comes in the business perspective, or in that business sphere, there's the incumbent and the successor. And so those are more business ways of talking to one another and thinking about that. And hopefully the same guidance of respect and valuing people's opinion are happening in the family sphere and the business sphere, but it really needs to be a balance, and thinking about how communications need to happen between these two spheres as you go back and forth in who you are, mother and boss, or son and daughter and manager.
Thank you for joining us on this video about the social structure of the family. If you're interested in checking out some more videos, you can look at What is a Family Business and Fairness in the Family Business.